women are already at a disadvantage for a whole host of reasons, as it relates to, our ability to plan for our financial future and create what I call a wealth ecosystem,
Mm.
you know? Some examples are there is a gender wage gap. We still make, right, about 80 cents to the comparative dollar that the guys do for comparable positions and roles. And so, you know, even if we can send 10% of our income to retirement, right? If we're making 80K and they're making 100K and they can send 10% to their retirement, well, they're already sending more to the future than we can right now because we're earning less, right?
Yeah, and it goes down even further for, other women, like women of color and Latino women in particular, and Native American women. Yeah.
Absolutely, right? So that it's a perfect example of why it's so important for us to become not only financially educated, but what are some of the things, what are some of the levers that we can implement to actually create measurable impact, right, to our financial situation.
What does it really mean to be financially free as a woman? Not just secure, but serene, confident, fully yourself. Hi, everyone. I'm Giovanna. If you're new here, welcome to the Well Woman Show. This is where we explore the intersection of personal growth and collective well being so that women can live with more joy, resilience, and purpose. I'm sitting down today with Christine Joy Luck Sarno, a financial coach and speaker known as the Financial Wingwoman. What makes Christine different from other financial experts is that she's not just going to give you the nuts and bolts, the list of books to read, or the standard financial advice. She brings a deep understanding of women's lives, what really supports us, what we're actually up against, and how we can get to a place of well being in all the areas of our lives. And the Well Woman Reset Kit is here, a digital guide and meditation designed to help you pause, reflect, and remember your power before stepping into the new year. For $27, you'll get journaling prompts, a year in review ritual, a guided meditation, and a lot more. And because rest is contagious, you can gift this kit to 2 friends at 50% off. Plus, your purchase includes a bonus seat in our year-end Power Up workshop on December 27th, live with me, so you can step into 2026 with clarity, energy, and purpose. If you're ending this year feeling stretched thin or craving a reset, then this is for you. Grab your copy and let's reset together. I want to start, Christine, by just asking you, who are you in the world today?
Who am I in the world today? Oh my gosh, I love this question. Well, what I'd love to embody is just a woman who is at a point in her life who is holding the torch for other women to understand what it can be like, what it can feel like, right? How you can move through the world as an independent woman, whether you're in partnership or not, but being in tune with who you are and what you'd like to accomplish in the world. And, kind of the underpinning of all of that is also being an empowered steward of your own financial life.
Mm.
Just because I think so many women we're at a point now where we are able to find success both in our professional and personal lives, but sometimes and all too often it's that financial component. The well-being in our finances isn't always part of that equation. And so what I want to do is just bridge that gap and help women understand, right, how to become financially literate, financially empowered, and continue to navigate their journey, but with a whole sense of financial peace and I think confidence about their future.
Yeah, I love that because in some ways, we've come so far with women in the workplace and women in business, and women's independence, and we have a long way to go for full, equity and equality. But financial independence and financial literacy is something that sort of take for granted that, like, well, women are just doing that, like, but they're really not, because otherwise you wouldn't be concerned about it and working on it. So, I know you have a financial background, but talk a little bit about the problem that we're facing.
I think what women are Well, how about this? It's a whole host of problems. It's a whole host of challenges. I think that we're still contending with. I think back in the day, and in our mother's generation, right? Um, as young girls, we were told that we could be anything that we wanted to be, right? And so we were fighting for women's equality, gender pay equality, right? Uh, Trying to break the glass ceiling. We're going into careers and trying to, get to leadership levels, which we can be very experienced, qualified, right? And actually able to be very successful at. But I think somewhere along the way, the message got very confusing. And so now women are taking on the pressure of trying to be everything, right? So we've gone from this dream and this message of knowing that we can be anything that we want to be, but now we're trying to be everything.
Mhm.
And the research is out there, right? Women who are trying to climb the corporate ladder, generally areas of their life, especially their personal life, has a tendency to suffer. And so don't have as much in terms of time and resources to really focus, right, on partners and our families. And I think, one of the things that just makes it very, very difficult for women in general is we're just stretched. We don't have the bandwidth, I think, to be able to put as much focus as we could on just our financial well-being. So oftentimes I've worked with women who are basically delegating that responsibility to a partner, and they may not have any idea what's going on with the finances, the family finances. I still see that today. Or they have worked with a financial expert, I hate to say this, or an advisor that they believe is helping to make decisions in their best interests, and that isn't always the case.
Mhm.
Um, and
Yeah.
there's still a lot of confusion, right, around just kind of personal finance and those strategies that are available to us, right, to help us carve out a stronger financial future.
Yeah, and so when you talk about this, I know you have a lot to say about this, and I love it. You talk about a wealth myth that keeps women playing small. What is that wealth myth?
I think, there's a lot of excellent marketing out there. Right? And when I'm saying it's excellent, it's not necessarily positive, but there's this idea that, it's almost become a meme, but I don't think it's funny, where, they say women aren't able to you're unable to grow wealth because, you're spending too much money. You're buying too many $7 or $8 lattes. This is a
Mhm,
perfect example, which I think is absolutely it's ridiculous, right? Because at the end of the day, if cutting out a $7 to $8 latte every day would make us rich, I think every Starbucks would be empty, right? If you think about it. And the thing that I think it's really important for women to understand is that, when it comes to cash flow, right? Cutting back on discretionary spending is one way to help improve our financial situation, right? To get us in a stronger financial position, but really understanding what we can do to deploy, right, our money, to deploy our earnings to different strategies, right, where our money actually has a better opportunity to grow for us, right? For example, market-based investments, um, in our retirement plan, in a brokerage account, understanding how to do that strategically, right? That is knowledge that's going to help us be in a much better position to change our financial lives, right? Understanding the tax code,
mm,
right? Having a better understanding, right? Following IRS rules, but having a better understanding of how the tax code impacts, right, our income, and just to be really well versed on these types of strategies so that we can optimize, you know, our earnings.
yeah, that's
So
great.
that's an example of a myth that still gets my gourd.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's good, and so if people want to, go down that path of, like, learning the tax code and learning these strategies and getting clarity about what to do, where do you suggest people start? Like, how do people get started with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, right? I think here's the thing. I think the internet, and now with the rapid acceleration of AI, right? I think financial information, personal finance information has become wonderfully democratized. So I think, whether it's books, whether it's aligning with money experts, right? It's about taking the time to get literate, right? Whether, look, I'm agnostic. I don't care what the platform is. I say, this is about education and learning, right? Take everything that you read or learn with a grain of salt. You can also, if you have a trusted financial advisor, if you have a trusted tax professional, right? Don't wait for that one time a year for this quick check in on your total financial picture, if they're even helping at that level, to just have a 1 hour chat and check the box. Have the open dialogue, have the open communication, ask these questions. Um, that's really, really important. Most people spend probably at minimum a good, 15 to 30 minutes a day on social media. And I say if you can spend that amount of time, right, on social media, you can spend that same amount of time reading a newsletter, reading a blog post, listening to a wonderful podcast, listening to an audiobook. But it's about really taking the time to get informed. So so the best place to start, I would say, is those are some examples, but the number one thing is making the commitment to bringing financial literacy into your life as a daily practice.
Yeah, just like anything else, any of the other practices, that has to be part of it.
Yeah.
Um, and so, Christine, you talk about, women who are, or I don't know if it's only women. Do you only help women or is it women and men?
So I do work I work with both women and men,
Okay.
but I think, the majority of my client base is primarily women. I think because so much of my messaging and a lot of the focus, right, in terms of the education that I bring to the table is really about, ways that and I women are already at a disadvantage for a whole host of reasons,
Mm,
as it relates to, our ability to plan for our financial future and create what I call a wealth ecosystem,
mm,
you know? Some examples are there is a gender wage gap. We still make, right, about 80 cents to the comparative dollar that the guys do for comparable positions and roles. And so, you know, even if we can send 10% of our income to retirement, right? If we're making 80K and they're making 100K and they can send 10% to their retirement, well, they're already sending more to the future than we can right now because we're earning less, right?
yeah, and it goes down even further for, other women, like women of color and Latino women in particular, and Native American women. Yeah.
Absolutely, right? So that's why it's a perfect example of why it's so important for us to become not only financially educated, but what are some of the things, what are some of the levers that we can implement to actually create measurable impact to our financial situation. Because look, here's the thing, you know, Giovanna, that same individual who's making, significantly more than I might be making in a role, well, for him to buy one share of, say, Amazon stock or Apple stock, as an example, right? It costs me the same too.
Mhm.
Nobody's getting any discounts here, right? So to me, right, my money in the market is one of the most powerful equalizers.
Yeah.
That's one way, So if we can't make progress in our workplace, if we can't make progress, even from a just, from a socioeconomic, right, cultural standpoint, even in this country, in terms of equal pay, what are some of the things that we can do that we have accessible to us, levers that we have accessible to us? So,
Yeah.
this is kind of just an example of why it's super important, I think, for women to plan for the future. Look, we're going to live longer than the guys.
Right.
Actuarial tables say we're going to be living well into our 90s because of advancements in medical and healthcare, and that's wonderful. But what does that mean? That means we have to plan, right, for a longer stretch of our sassy golden years to make sure we're not running out of money.
Yeah,
So again,
absolutely.
yeah. And then whenever somebody the research is out there, but whenever a loved one, a family member, child, right, parent needs to be taken care of, right? If they, if somebody is aging parent, it tends to be one of the top things on the list. But if somebody is going through a disability or whatever it may be, and someone needs to stop work to take care of that family member, generally it is the female in the household. So that's lost income right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Christine, what is the wealth ecosystem?
Okay.
What's in
I
there?
love that. I love that. So that's the platform that I start to teach women
Mm,
to create, right? It's important, there's different components of a wealth ecosystem that I want women to understand can help to build this platform where you have the ability to start to strategically deploy your money, right? And grow your money towards your future goals.
mm.
That's really our North Star. We really want to understand what we're planning for, right? In the future. Short, mid, and long term goals, super important, professionally, personally, financially. And this wealth ecosystem is basically understanding how much you can ideally make, right? If you are in an earning position right now, it's really about, we talk about how to negotiate to optimize, right, your earned income situation. And then where can we actually start deploying these dollars to help protect you, to really help protect you, right? While simultaneously sending money um, through different, I guess you might say, investment options to consider, right? To help your money grow. And so, like, for example, what's the right amount of cash reserves to have for your
Okay.
situation, right?
Yeah.
That's super, super important. How much liquidity do you have when it comes to your money? Um,
And in what order do you do things, right?
right. In
So,
what order do you do things, right?
what
What are the right protection pieces? Ideally, given your circumstances, you might need to have in place, Do we think about life insurance if we have dependent, right? Um, if we are the primary breadwinner in the household, right? Do we have a contingency plan or protection pieces in place if we have to be out of work for an extended period of time to take care of an illness or an injury,
Mhm.
right? That's part of this ecosystem I'm talking about. Are we sending the right amount to our respective goals, and where are we sending the money, for example, right? If you work for a company and you um, are able to participate in an employer sponsored retirement plan like a 401k, and you know that there's an opportunity to get a match if you contribute, right? Are we optimizing that?
Yeah.
Are we optimizing that opportunity, right? So it's those are all examples of what I just want to say. It's literally looking at all of these different foundational components of a money platform that's intended to give us as women what I call financial serenity. It goes beyond peace of mind, right?
Mm.
It's having
Just
this
my whole
like,
body just like felt relaxed when you said that.
yeah. So I don't, it's so funny when it's a lot of people talk about this idea of financial security. I think financial security is this concept that everything is perfect and nothing's going to happen to us if we've achieved financial security. And and here's the thing, like life is going to happen. Hashtag life,
Mhm.
right? And what I want women to understand is you can create something that gives you the ability to pivot if you need to pivot, right? That gives you the opportunity to make choices for your own well being. If you're in a toxic relationship or if you're in a toxic work environment, right? Do you have the financial means to make changes for yourself, right? If something should happen, um, a pet needs an emergency surgery, do we have enough cash reserves in the bank to be able to address that surprise, right?
Yeah.
But essentially, it's this feeling of knowing that you can have the confidence. Serenity is the peacefulness, the confidence, and the ability to respond financially,
Mm.
right? So you know that life and some of these situations, they may not always be easy, but they're not going to take you down, right? It's not going to be a pipe across the kneecap, and that's what I want to help women create.
It might not be easy, but it's not gonna take you down. I love it. Um, You're We're gonna take a quick break. You're listening to the Well Woman Show. I'm speaking with Christine Joy Luck Sarno, and we'll be right back. If you've ever found yourself worrying if you'll ever really make it in the thing you're pursuing, waking up at 3 a.m. with that familiar wave of anxiety, feeling drained, like no matter how much you do, it's never enough, stuck leading in your team, second guessing every move, or procrastinating because moving forward just feels too heavy, then I want to personally invite you into something different. This isn't another do more, hustle harder program. The Well Woman Academy is where you'll be deeply heard, truly seen, and fully supported. It's where high achieving women like you, who are out there changing the world, come to release the anxiety, burnout, perfectionism, and self doubt that hold them back. The result? You don't just survive, you get to live your well woman life, a life of joy, ease, and abundance, even when the world around you feels chaotic. This is about rewriting the rules for how we love, lead, and succeed, because it's your time. The Well Woman Academy coaching program opens in 2026. If you want to be the first to know when the doors open and get early access, join the waitlist at wellwomanlife.com/academy waitlist. We're back on the Well Woman Show with Christine Joy Luck Sarno, and we're talking about wealth and wealth ecosystems and financial serenity. And Christine, we're going into a segment called Superpowers for Success, where listeners get to learn a little bit more about you and how you and your leadership in the world. And the first question I want to ask you is, what does success in life mean for you?
Oh, success in life. Honestly, Giovanna, it's to me, success in life is a life like just fully lived, fully lived. I mean, there is no for me. There's no big vision of potentially like growing my business to a certain size or whatever it may be. But it's to me, success is knowing that I'm living and will continue to live a full life, that my work is also my passion. I'm so grateful, right, at this point of my life and my career to be able to have that. Um, and to just continue just growing, right, as an individual. And I think part of the personal and the professional success, by the way, which is I think both go hand in hand. When people say, you know what, it's not personal, it's just business. Again, well, that this just drives me insane because I think business is personal, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's this feeling of knowing that I am able to create impact for others in what I do. It's I go to bed at night tired, but it's a fulfilled kind of tired, not a depleted tired, and I'm excited the next morning for what's next. And I think that to me, that feels like success.
Yeah, absolutely. And Christine, when did you know you were really good at what you do?
Oh, Giovanna, I was learning how to save, gosh, as early as probably junior high. I became a very passionate independent student of personal finance and investing. I mean, back in college when, a lot of my sorority sisters and my friends were out partying on some weekends, I actually took a pass because I was going through personal finance books and, investing books, learning how to invest. And I think this is honestly the full transparency. This is a function of growing up in a home, a very volatile household where my mom was an immigrant from another country. English was a second language. She didn't have financial resources or financial literacy as well. And, my mom was married to, my father, who unfortunately he had alcohol addiction issues and was abusive. So there
Mhm.
was abuse in the household. And watching what my mom went through and knowing that I could feel it. As children, you feel that, right?
Mm.
Watching how the trauma and the feeling of being so trapped because she didn't have the financial means to make a change in her life, not till much, much later on. That was the imprint that it left on me. And so I learned very quickly as a little girl, right, that in order to be able to create options in life, choices, right, based on what you know is good and healthy and right for you, how you want to live your life, right, and things you will not tolerate. Having financial sovereignty, it is most definitely a
Mm.
part of that formula for so many women.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that personal connection to your work, and your background. Um, Christine, what superpower did you discover you had only to realize it was there all the time?
I think my superpower is that, like, I have a big open heart. I really do. I have a big open heart, and what you see is what you get. Everybody gets the real Christine. There's the serious, very pragmatic side. There's the soft, nurturing, full big heart. I love big. And then I'm a big goofball and a nerd, and everybody sees that too. So, and I think that to me, for me, has in my life, it's attracted so many people that I think they're able to be that way as well. So the ability to connect with others, and I honor this and I don't hold it lightly, but I'm invited into their space. I'm invited into their heart, right? And so I think maybe just the ability to be as authentic, as genuine as I can be, and be shameless about it has been a great superpower.
Yeah, sounds like it for sure. And can you describe a personal habit that contributes to your well-being so you can do everything you do in the world?
Yeah, thank you for asking. You know, Probably now for the last decade, I have my personal ritual time every morning. I get up early. I generally get up when it's still dark, and this is not because, I'm trying to impart, these are like the best productive habits you should have. It's just this is almost like my medicine, if you will. Right? But I do get up generally about 4:30 or 5 every morning, and I give myself at least 35 minutes to 45 minutes minimum of quiet and meditation time.
Yeah.
And, it's for me, there's something absolutely it's I just you connect back to yourself. You have time to be in your own thoughts, right? In your own heart, and it gives me so much more clarity because I can finish this ritual or this routine in the morning, and I am my best self for others.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this now for almost a decade, and it has served me well when there have been times in my life that have been not very easy.
Yeah.
And and it just I don't know, it's one of those things where I you can call it self-care, you can call it a practice, whatever you wanna call it, but I just feel like for me this is it's sacred.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a real fundamental piece of what supports you. And for listeners, on the Well Woman Show, we often talk about what are those things that those tools and resources that we have that we can use to build resilience, to just feel supported throughout the day. And a lot of times we use those and we feel great and we're doing, awesome. And that leads to more and more activity. We're getting more and more traction in the things that we're doing because we're in flow, we're doing great. And then we head into, then we can sort of tend to forget to do those things that maybe support us, right? Like we move away from that and then we go into burnout. And this is part of the Well Woman framework that I share that it's a cycle, right? We go and then we can go round and round. But I'm interested because we talk a lot about this with this community, um, how you stay on track with your practice. And if you go into like autopilot and you forget to do your practice, how you get back to it. Like what's that remembering part?
Oh, I love this question. So here's And I have had, listen, there are days where things might come up and, I can't either I haven't been able to get to my morning practice or, 10, 15 minutes, although there's still benefit to that, right? In the morning. I know the difference. I feel the difference, right, in my body, but I think part of it is to not really look, so I don't feel badly, but I say to myself, "Okay, can I carve out some of this time for myself in the evening?" Or, I will be as focused as I possibly can to ensure that I have my time tomorrow morning.
Oh,
But there's this, you know, when you have a practice that is helping you, right, with your overall being, and I'm sure you talk about this with your community, you will start to feel the impact of not using those tools, not as connected, maybe more frazzled, you're just tired, you're feeling pulled like you're in too many different directions, things seem to be going not in the right direction, right?
mhm.
So if we allow ourselves to pay attention to those signs and not feel badly about it, but just go, wait a minute, I've already created a baseline of what it feels like when I am in flow. And I already understand what the tools I've used, right, kind of
Yeah.
complement that state of well-being, right? It's how do I get back into that?
Mhm.
Because I also understand what it means to be in that space. So it's practice is not perfect,
Right, right. Yeah.
but
Is that
as long as we continue to make ourselves a priority, right? It's really, really important. I love that you bring this up, if I may, Giovanna, because this year, in April of this year, I launched my first Wingwoman Financial Wellness Retreat. It was in Temecula in Southern California, and there was this aspect of financial education and financial planning, right? That was going to be part of the topics we covered. But what most women didn't realize until they showed up was that the primary point of putting something like this together was creating an environment where women could detach, they could be nourished with healthy food, they could be in nature, they could be pampered, they could have a good night's sleep, and they could be in community with other like minded women. That we could step away from whatever's going on in our present life that's creating all of this stress and or disconnect. Because look, I could say to somebody, "You should watch a YouTube video on, the retirement planning tactics." And if they're in the middle of picking up kids from school and they still have to make dinner, right, for the family, and then there's a proposal that they've got to crunch out after the kids are in bed, and we could just go down the list. Even if they sat down and watched this YouTube video, highly unlikely that that information is either A, gonna be processed effectively, and B, any of that stuff's gonna be implemented.
right.
And the whole point of helping women this way, which is I know what you do for your communities, helping them to get to a place where they can actually not only take in process information, right, but that prefrontal cortex and just be in a state to be able to implement.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you brought that up and that you talked about that because that's why I had wanted you on this show because I can get any old financial advisor who's going to give you the nuts and bolts and the list of books to read and the whatever and all of that is useful, but there's this other element that you bring, which is really an understanding of women's lives and like what really is going to be supportive and how we can get to a place of well-being in all the ways, but certainly financial. We're running out of time. I want to get to a couple last questions.
got it.
Do you identify as a feminist, Christine?
I identify as a womanist.
Yeah. And what does that mean for you?
I think you know what it is? Like, here's the thing. I feel that for me, there's powerful messaging that needs to be shared with other women that it's very feminine to be independent, to be strong, to be self-sufficient. It's very feminine because the ability to take care of ourselves financially is what helps us to be in our softness, in our feminine state, right?
Mhm.
We know we've got the power of choice. So to me, this is, I mean, that could be also considered feminist, but when I say womanist, it's about just being a woman that wants to hold the torch for telling and for other women to say, look, at the end of the day, you putting yourself first, you taking care of yourself, right? Fully, mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually. Um, the world is a better place. Like you are better for yourself. You're better for the people that love you and or depend on you, your community, your country. The world is a better place because you are in that state, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And last question, what are you reading right now? What's on your nightstand?
Oh my gosh. I mean, so I'm one of those individuals that have multiple books that I
Mm.
toggle through.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And then I read a couple of chapters, then I move to another one. So the one that I actually just read a couple of chapters of last night,
Mm.
um, I'm rotating through about 4, is Let Them,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Mel Robbins.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Cool. Yeah.
yeah.
And we haven't talked about that book here yet. So we'll link to that in our show notes because listeners are always curious what guests are reading. And so we'll add that for sure. And Christine, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show today.
Giovanna, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for having me. This was amazing and so much fun, and your community is so lucky to have you. You're incredible. So thank you.
Thank you. That's it for our show today. Remember, if you need support to live your well woman life, follow us on Instagram at Well Woman Life. And don't forget, you can catch the show on NPR anytime. Just head to npr.org/podcasts and search for The Well Woman Show. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts and leave us a quick review. It really helps others find the show. I always love hearing from you, so drop a comment or message me on socials at Well Woman Life. I'm Giovanna Rossi for The Well Woman Show. Until next time, have a super powerful week.